Hey everyone, so in this video I'm going to share with you some tips about line weight variation or thick and thick lines, and just share with you what I think is important and just some ways that I incorporate it in my drawing. Okay, this has been something that I've been asked to do for a while, and I figured, like, you know what, I'll just make a quick video where I'll share some tips with you. So line weight variation, of course, is pretty much that, just varying the thickness of your lines. Okay, that's it. Okay, so of course you can vary the thickness of your lines in one single line, or you can do it in an implied line, like in the same direction. All right, I do that, and sometimes I vary my line weight in different parts of a drawing. So for example, like here and in here, you see what I'm saying? And that adds a different effect. So there is line weight variation here, just in different parts of the drawing. Yeah, it seems pretty simple, but it's good to be aware of the fact that, I'm deliberately varying the thickness of my lines in different areas as I see it suit the creative outcome. You know what I mean? Now, a quick thing I should point out, first of all, is that this pen is not necessarily designed or well suited for line weight variation. Actually, technical drawing pens are actually favored or made to create lines with consistent width. So basically, they're made specifically to create lines like these. See, the weight of the line, or the thickness of the line, is pretty much consistent. You see that? That's as opposed to doing like this. See, if you notice the pen, look what I'm doing. When I'm putting a lot of pressure down on the pen, I try to keep it vertical, or as vertical as possible. When I'm trying to make really thin lines, I slant it. See? Less pressure, more pressure. Thick, thin, thick, thin. So if I were to apply that to drawing another eye, see, so a lot of times if I'm drawing with pen, I can actually create like a light sketch just by keeping my pen slanted. And then when I'm ready to commit, I start leaning it up a little bit. Thin, thick, thin, thick. Thin, thick, thin, thick, and so on. Okay. Another important thing, of course, is that I use these to create variation in my line as best as I can, but of course they're not necessarily made to do that. So one way of working around that limitation is I use pens of, and you can find this in almost all the brands that make pretty good technical drawing pens, is I use pens of varying point sizes. See, so this is a 0.2 millimeter point, and this is a 0.5. You see that? So what that does is, like, for example, like I was illustrating here, like if I'm drawing an eye, see, for the bold areas, I can use this to fill in. And for the lighter areas, instead of trying to lighten the pressure, I can just draw as usual, but use a pen with a lighter point. And this is something I use a lot in my drawings, and I mix them. As a matter of fact, one thing that I do too is like, because with ink drawing, you don't have the effect of like making light marks like pencil. You know, you can draw very lightly and draw very deep when you're ready to commit. With these, sometimes I create like in my mind, it's like a light wash of value with a very light pen like this, for example. So if I have something like say a shape like this, right? And if I want to create a value, if I want to make this seem as if it's a particular value, I may just put in a very light layer of hatch marks. And what this does is, in my language of drawing, it's like it colors it. So now it's no longer just the white of the paper, but now it takes on a slight gray. And just like in watercolor, where you have a first layer of color as your background, sometimes that's what I do in ink, and then I'll go over it with a deeper point, or a bolder point, or a larger size tip, and then I'll go over it and I'll render in whatever way I want, or whatever. You see what I mean? And then I'll also vary the outline. So if here is in shadow, of course, I'll make sure the outline is bold. See? And that pretty much goes into the different ways or areas in which I use line weight variation in a drawing. One of the main areas that I use line weight variation is in the contour of forms. So for example, like this, you know, like the nose, for example. Let me see that. This is different from just doing like this. See, now you see the difference. This is different feeling. And what this does, and I guess it goes into the whys of line weight variation, is that it adds interest to your drawings. It makes it a lot more interesting to look at. Okay, it adds variety, and variety is beautiful. Now, in addition to variety, it suggests rhythm. Okay, it's just like when you're if you're drawing the human figure. If you look at the human figure is filled. The body just has these rhythms. Okay, you look at water, you look at movement, period, a smoke, fire, they just have anything that has motion has this beautiful rhythm. Okay. What line weight variation does, it suggests a rhythm just by having thick and thin, even if it's in a straight line. Even just in doing that, you suggest rhythm. Now, in addition to rhythm, it suggests volume. Okay, and as a result of suggesting volume, it suggests mass and density. So if I do something like this, see, just by doing that, what am I suggesting? I'm suggesting some kind of a force pulling down. I suggest that this is heavy. You see what I'm saying? So if I were to do that and then add maybe some silly details here, something like that. See, all of a sudden that makes sense. You see? See, because I just varied the weight of the line around the contour, and that suggests weight and mass and volume. So rhythm is suggested, volume is suggested, and it suggests light and shadow. And that's pretty much what I was trying to illustrate here. In that, when I'm drawing the contour of the face, I try to anticipate where's the light source coming from. So for example, in this case, if the light source is coming from up here, right, I make sure that the lines that are facing the contour of the forms facing the light source will be light, and those facing away in shadow will be deep or thicker. And that suggests light and shadow, or actually implies the light and shadow pattern even without any shading of the interior forms. So for example, if this continues down to where the lips are, I know that the top of the lip or the mouth be really light, right? And then this going down will be in shadow. See? Then this will be really light. Then this going down will be in shadow. See? Top of the chin will be really light, and then the bottom of the chin will be in shadow. You see what I'm saying? So this is implying light and shadow. So the top facing up will be light, all areas facing up will be light, and areas facing down will be in shadow. And I use this in all my drawings, and I'm telling you, it's something you can apply to virtually anything you draw. Now, in addition to using it, as I said, one in the contour of the form, I use it in the cross contour of the form. So for example, even if I'm drawing the nose right here, right? If I were sketching it, if I were shading it, the lines I would use would taper as they go around. See, so if I'm drawing like a form like this again, all right, these are cross contour lines. Cross contour lines are lines that basically go around the form, okay? They basically follow the curvature of the form. In other words, I'm imagining this as if it's three-dimensional, and the lines are following the cross contour. Of course, you should always think about forms like this when you're drawing, okay? Now, see, notice these lines, the weight is pretty much consistent. Now, if I did like this, and then now I make the lines vary in weight. So for example, really thin, thick, thin, and make them taper as they go around. See, it's a different feeling now that's being interpreted. And of course, I could even exaggerate the degree of thin and thick lines, see? So what I'm doing here is I'm actually suggesting volume a lot much more effectively than I did here. See, here, this is important, you know, just having cross contour lines, but here I'm varying the weight of those cross contour lines. So there, it's almost like we think of it in the same way as things that are further away from us get harder to see. So, and also as it moves towards the light, it's getting more bleached out. So for example, we could have even exaggerated this by doing like so. First of all, I'm not going to let it go all the way to the edge, and I'm going to start it from, say, like 3/4 up. And then see, what I'm doing is I'm actually trying to have this fade into it. So because I'm not able to create as thin enough a line with this one pen, I'm actually using two pens, and that's something I do a lot. Just like I was mentioning here about using the smaller details, leaving the smaller details for the smaller point, I'm doing the same thing here, but now I'm going cross contour. Those are two of the ways that I use it. I use it in the cross contour, in the contour of the form, and in the cross contour of the form, and then I use it in different areas. So for example, even if I'm drawing like this, like with the eye, I would make sure I use different types of lines in the same drawing, and that also adds to the complexity and variety in your drawing. So if I'm drawing like the lips, okay, and let's say we're drawing 1/2. All right, like that. And then for in certain areas, I would only use this. So you have to be able to use a smaller point in certain areas of your drawing. So the job for this point is done already. It does the outline. And then for all the detail work, I'll use this smaller point. See, and it's a smart way to, you know, add variety to your work, but also learn how to use your tools. You know, so for example, you don't have to make your drawings monotonous or just, you know, just be done with one thing. You can actually find ways to incorporate different devices in your drawing. In the same way, it's like, you know, you can use a paintbrush, you can use a brush pen, you can use dip pens. Dip pens, of course, are one of my favorite ways of creating line weight variation as well. Really fun to use, and you can create some really beautiful drawings. Of course, even with texture, you know, if I'm creating a texture here and I do something like this, see, that's a completely different feeling than if I just do that. You see, by having the lines taper, they do a much more effective job of suggesting texture than these lines do. Okay, so those are some of the ways that I use line weight variation, and these are the concepts that I use actually in guiding my use of it. See, and the point I'm trying to make here, and perhaps this is something that I'll elaborate on, I'm thinking of doing like a series of like art advice or discussion or whatever, you know, like where I discuss certain concepts that I use in my drawings. And one of them is that, just like with science, see, my science background kind of taught me this, in that when you're doing an experiment, it's important to be aware of as many of the variables that affects the outcome of your experiment. You know, it's in your interest to know as much of them as possible, and then be able to control them at will. See, so then you're being able to account for their impact on what you get. See, with drawing, the process of drawing involves several different variables working at the same time. And when you have an element like line has different properties. It's good that you're aware of the properties or the variables that are at work in your drawing. And sometimes you have to try to consciously make yourself aware. Like, even sometimes if I'm drawing, like in the beginning, before these things were, you know, have become second nature as they are now, I used to like make a list of things that I should be aware of when I'm drawing. See, so while I'm drawing, I remember, okay, remember to incorporate that. Remember to be aware of that. So you may be doing a drawing and you realize like, oh crap, I never varied my outline. Damn it. And then because you know that in drawing, small things can make a big impact, and just by varying that, you could add another dimension to your drawing. So it's good to be of the variables that can affect your drawing, so you can have more control of the creative outcome that you get. Okay, so I hope you found something in this useful. If you guys enjoyed this, found it inspiring, or learned something, you know, please give the video a thumbs up. I'd appreciate it. And you know, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.